First thing I do is count my 9. These, 2, 3.
I like that better. I always start at the A and go the way.
Yeah, one of the
better.
riggers showed me this a couple months ago. Makes it easier because then everything just lines up.
Yeah.
So you've got the D's or A's, B's, C's, and D's, and you can see them all. Sabre2s have that that fourth one that kind of hides, and then like the fifth one that's kind of a fake D line. We'll throw you off. Careful. Quarter up, even with the stabilizer. Kind of tuck the nose and it'll come out later. Just make sure that's nice and open. Good quarter. And then I start way back here in the tail. Fold, fold. And there's no real difference on whether you go right or left. This is just something I kind of picked up. Once I get to the logo, got a good bite on it. It's still straight. Push down, I know the tag's right in the middle. Got that. Pinch and pinch. So from right here, everything's the same. Seams all line up. I'll take it down to the end of the cell. And from here, go to my knee. So it's pretty much just grazing the ground. And it's a swing out. It's a deliberate flip, and I don't punch the ground, because if you punch the ground, it'll make everything on the inside move around. So it's just a nice, smooth movement. And from there, I find this is a good time to go ahead and cock the pilot chute. You open this up. So what you're looking at is the nose of the canopy. So you've got your 9 cells all stacked right here. So I count 1, 2, 3, 4, because it's a 9 cell. I take those and I roll them to the outside. That's your center, your fifth. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And roll them to the outside. So make sure that those are pretty much rolled about the same, and I use the A lines as a reference. Make sure those are good to go. Number 5 cell center, nice and pulled up. You reach through, grab your slider, make sure that's right there. So when it opens, first thing that hits the wind is your center cell and your slider. And then your 4 cells, they evenly try to unroll. So it starts in the center and then it tries to pull itself open, because the wind will start pushing into the center cell, it'll start inflating, and then it'll start trying to unroll the rest of the cells evenly, left to right. Alright, see, there's this big gap here. I'll pull that out from underneath in a second. So you got the center cell. I got 1 cell out to that stitch line, 1 cell out to that stitch line. Grab those, come around to the top, reach under. I find the tuck tab for the little gray tab that's attached to the center cell, about 2 feet from the tail, and I pull it until it's even. Still holding those seams. Make my triangle. From here, kind of pinch, roll, and move. Still holding that, still holding it there. From here I just start ironing it out. And I'm also paying attention to the bottom skin, making sure that I've got it pulled up tight. Then you have top skin and bottom skin, nice and tight like that. Then I know what my D-bag width is. Kind of has to go by feel the first couple times until you get used to it. Take that, fold it under. So now you've got your right side line set. Extra, step it. And it's pretty much the same thing on this side. You want to make sure all your tail skins up nice and tight. grab your chunk where you're going to fold it under from. Take this guy, fold it up and under. So now this is that edge that I pulled over the top. It's now all the way underneath on the bottom. And just as a check, grab all that, and I make sure I can follow that seam all the way down through here. And I end up kind of rolling that under, pulling it underneath that, so I have a smooth surface once I start rolling it to grab from on the back. So from here, you got this big, long, pretty straight tube, and then you've got your bridle. Right or left, doesn't matter, it's just, it always, for me, ends up on the left. Flatten it out, and start rolling. I use my leg to kind of compress the air out of it as I roll. And I'm constantly trying to pull the skin across, keeping it tight. I found if I go until I can see the edge of the tail right at the bottom of the carpet, I've rolled far enough. So the big thing with this pack job is it will decock your pilot chute a little bit as you put it on. So what you got to realize is you're putting the bag on backwards, so the grommets are towards the container. You want to make sure that this, I can't remember the name of this, you want to make sure this is out and showing, because you want enough line to the top of the bag that will sit on the top of the pack job. So if this is all tucked down in here, the top of your bag is going to try and sit on the edge of the pack job so it doesn't work out. Just pull it over, make sure this isn't all completely twisted up 7 times or anything. Take this, push it down, makes it seated, put my knee on it, make sure the end of my roll is right square in the end of the pack job, move around, put my knee on it, I grab the edge of the bag, all I do is just work it down onto it.
So much easier to get in the bag.
So, now that it's in the bag, remember I induced a 180 this way, I've got to take that out. 180 line twist is out, that lines up with the edge of the bag. You don't want it deep down in, and you don't want it way back here. You get a lot of line burn on your canopy. So right here is pretty much perfect. The cool thing with the Psycho Pack, because it's rounded, it's a little bit low for what I like. Take the whole thing, I'll rotate it in the bag until it's exactly where I want it. And the same thing can be done the other way. You can take this and move it around in the bag and roll it inside of the bag. So once that's set, I start doing my lines. Here it's pretty much normal. And I make sure once I get this cocked, or this closed up, I'll recock the pilot chute and you'll see a little bit of line than I get out of it. You got 2-3 inches just from that. And it's just because of the way it moves around in there. You're not completely decocking it, but it's just enough that you want to make sure you got a good loose solid on your window. Notice you jump a Mirage.
Yeah.
You get big bands, so you double stow everything?
Yeah.
Okay. I like the little ones, that's just me.
I have little and big, but I usually, all the packers and everything have always used big, so I just kind of stuck with the big bands.
Yeah. So the weird thing about Mirages, these stows are really close together.
Yeah.
So you either end up doing stows out to here, which I'm really not a fan of. I did that for a good 50 jumps, and I never had a problem with it because I was always really neat about my stows. But my understanding is that, you know, big loops can cause a lot of problems. What I've gotten into recently is it's basically a double stow. It's kind of hard to explain. You pull 4 inches through. It's basically like having a true 4-inch stow, and then it's doubled back through.
Loop it back to it?
Yep.
Huh.
So it's a little bit weird. Don't throw you off the first time trying to do it. And now I've got uneven fucking lines.
So you don't do that on the locking stoves, just the...
Yeah, just these. So like that's a really big stow. But if I
Yeah.
take that, I cut it in half. Hold on to that and run around it. And that's what I do.
That's interesting. Never seen anyone do that.
It is interesting. So it's a big 4-inch loop. Fold it back 2. And the way that this pays out, the reason this won't really cause you problems is because they're below the lines that are getting pulled. So as these get pulled, all it's going to do is just pull and unstow. If these are a little bit longer, a lot of times the inner stow, I'll do it with a lot longer ones you see. Big old stow. Pull it out. First stow comes out, and then the second fold comes out.
Yeah.
You know, so chances of friction knot or anything like that are pretty much slim to shit. Now my lines are all fucked. So yeah, I do 3 and 3, and then I use the center one as well. And then getting it in the container, Mirages are a little weird. So even if I have to go back to this, it's still really round, really square. It doesn't completely fill the D-bag like would be perfect, but it's pretty close, and it's a lot easier to get into the container and mold it to the shape of the container. So I'll do this real quick. We'll get there and I'll show you, because Mirages are kind of interesting, because the way these D-bags are cut, they're really specific for the Mirage container. If you know how to put them in, it makes life a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had any Mirage specific training. I think when I took the packing class, I think we were packing like the student vectors or something.
Probably, or like javelins, and
Yeah.
or the stows are way out here. And you're like, oh yeah, a little 1-inch stow all the way across, and then, or if you do like standard stows on these, you'll have like 4 feet, which you really don't want. You want somewhere between 16 and 20 inches, so a mean of 18 inches, which for me is elbow to fingertip pretty much. So that's that. Take it. You need to do it that way or the other way. It's essentially the same thing.
That's pretty cool.
And I've only done this for a couple weeks. I'm a little slow on it. Sorry, guys. And you always want to fold back. If you fold forward, you increase the chance of getting the tension knot or line over on a loop before. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like all that excess is it's underneath, it's underneath, it's underneath. It's protected from the line that's getting pulled before it. So like on this, I might not even need to go to my 7th stow. This is gonna be it. Mirage put the 7th stow on there. The idea was that when the bag came off the tray, the center stow would keep it from hitting one first and then inducing a spin. But the second it breaks that first one, you're inducing this rocking anyway. So
Yeah.
I only use it if I have a lot of extra line. For me, that's elbow to fingertip is pretty much perfect. Take this up and over. Grab that guy. That's where I untie my rings.
I never seen that either.
Yeah.
It keeps them together. I don't agree with having them uneven, because if you've got them a foot apart, if there's an inch difference, you can't see it
Yeah,
until
it's
you
hard
get
to
down
tell.
to here, and then you're like, oh,
Mhm.
that's not right. But if you tie them together, and then it gives you a closing loop to use right there. So I just tie them together and do that. These are upgraded dive loops. All it is 3 lengths of the elastic material that's used to hold saddles together, just stripped together, and then webbing on either side, just stitched together on the ends, and that's all it is. The elastic doesn't do anything except keep it from getting pinched closed, and it gives you a little bit thicker material. And it makes closing this thing a little difficult. Do you like your Mirage?
Yeah.
I love it, dude.
Yeah, I like it.
My
Yeah.
Vector's pretty cool.
I like when I'm putting when I'm doing the risers, like the toggles kind of like fold them in half before I shove them in there.
Yes.
It's like when I first started jumping the rig, like if I had them like flat closed, like when the rig would open, especially when it was cold, I was wearing gloves. Like I couldn't get my hand in the toggles. If I like kind of fold them in half, it like makes them like spring
Open
open.
up.
So, this is supposed to sit in here, lines to the bottom, but it's got this weird shape to it, right?
Yeah, it's weird.
So what I do, make sure all my flaps are open. I keep the leg straps to the outside. I don't have the elastic on there because I've never had an issue trying to fall out of the fall out of the saddle. Make sure it's all clear. Set it down in there. And from here, you take this flap, you pick up on it, and you push them down together. It seats that bridle point right at the peak where it wants to be, so that all these lines line up, and then the bag sits down in there, nice and tight.
It's a good idea.
I run this out, Velcro, and I get it up and out of my way. And then I go panel at a time. I don't try to do all four at once. I think it's too hard. And this is a brand new 150. I've got maybe 2 dozen jumps on it in a container that's designed for 170. So it's not super tight, but it's not terrible either. And I don't like using my knee. I like just pinching it. Going from one to the next.
Yeah, mine's hard to close. It takes some strength to close it.